could stand and say the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, everybody, for coming. We have no visitors signed in wishing to speak, and no written communication tonight. I don't believe we had any special committee meetings, but anyone? No? And we can turn it right over to you.
Okay, thank you. We have three things on the superintendent's report tonight. The first one, we have our architects from Young and Wright, as well as Mr. Rampato, our director of facilities, who will provide us with a capital project update. The update's really designed to be focused on the plans for phase 2, which are on the horizon to be submitted to the state for approval. So as the board may recall, phase 1 has been approved by state ed, and we're looking to go out to bid for that component of that project as early as next month. And then phase 2 is in the planning phase, and that will be submitted to state ed shortly. So, welcome.
All right, hi everybody. I'm Jackie Dudkowski from Young and Wright Architectural, and like Tony said, I'm going to get you up to speed on some of the items that we've been progressing on over the course of the last few months since we were here last. I think Tony already gave a great summary of where we are in the schedule. If you remember, this project is divided into 3 phases. Phase 1, we're currently wrapping up for bid. Phase 2, we're wrapping up our construction documents prior to SED submission. And then phase 3, we're planning on beginning design work in the early spring. Since we were here last, just another quick summary of phase 1. We've got the SED approval. Turner Construction has been working with us on an estimate just to make sure that everything is falling in line with the budget and our documents are being prepared for bid. We're hoping to release the documents in mid-December with a bid opening in mid-January and then board approval in February. And just a quick reminder of the scope with phase 1. That is the site at the high school. Phase 1 basically consists of resurfacing the existing track, replacing the existing turf system with a new system, reconfiguring the tennis courts, and then the shot put and discus as well, and then kind of adding fencing around the entire facility to improve some of the security. And I don't know if you want to jump in and kind of talk about the long term.
Yeah, I mean, the initial scope for phase 1 was really a repair and replace for the turf and the track. And as we got into the planning, we recognized that we have some other areas of need out there where we'd like to enhance the facility. So we're trying to do as much as we can in the current project, but we're also trying to keep our eyes on the future and what we might like to see out there in an additional project. So, for example, it might be easier if I go up to the screen. One of the things that is the complex is pretty wide open, which is great. That was the intent of it when they fundraised to be able to put it in initially. But our signage out there indicates that the complex is open from dusk till dawn, but we don't have any way at dawn to close it up. So what we've decided to do here is, you can kind of see along the perimeter here, we have some additional fencing that we're putting in with a gate here that will allow us to open it on a timer and close it on a timer so that when we aren't around or at nighttime, we can have it secured. We don't have people in there when we don't want them in there. And that fencing carries around all the way to the existing fencing that exists around the complex and then comes over with the new tennis courts. So that's one thing we're adding to it, is a heightened security, but the goal was really to make sure we didn't minimize access to the community during the time that we said it would be available. So that's why we're looking at a magnetized gate with a timer system there, as well as incorporating it with our swipe card system with our employees.
Will that be the same at the Westmoreland side where you go in?
So that's a good question, and that was my next point. The other thing that we're looking at is down the road, we're looking to try to showcase the entrance to the facility a little bit more. So as you know, for those that have been to a sporting event at the complex, there's an opening here. There's an opening here at Westmoreland, or in the parking lot, and then there's actually access here, but not too often is it used when we have sporting events out there. You know that many times when we have sporting events, Westmoreland becomes sort of a quasi parking lot, and at times, could present a safety concern. So what we're looking to do is close that gate that's here and push the flow of traffic into the parking lot and have an entrance here and then an entrance here so that we can maximize our Berryman parking lot. So then we'll have access coming from Berryman up through here, and that's entrance, and then we also have an entrance here. So down the road, one of the things we had talked about with this project was putting stairs up the side of this hill here to make it a little bit more accessible, because as you know, there's an access road here that has a gate that keeps it locked up. We're removing that gate now that we have the new gate here. We're going to keep the access road, but part of what we envision for a future project would be a master entrance here to the complex that would almost have a more defined staircase. And then as you come up to the back complex here, we're envisioning some additional concrete and potentially a main entrance here that would have more of locker rooms, bathrooms, concessions, and more of a dramatic main entrance to the complex, not only for our athletes when they're coming out of the building, but also for our fans when they're coming in through the complex. That's not in this project, but what we're trying to do is keep an eye on what we want to see in the future, and we're trying to make sure that we're not doing anything in this project that we'd have to undo in the event that we wanted to expand our vision and make that complex a little bit more, just pick it up a notch a little bit. So that's really what we've talked about. There's some other small enhancements that I think are noteworthy. Behind the new bleachers, we use that for storage, but it's not very secure, it's open. So we're looking at some fencing behind those bleachers with some gates so that our maintenance staff can get in and out of there, but other people or things can't. So we're looking to secure that. Flipping the pole vaulting while we're doing it. Dr. Ilg had identified that we currently vault this way, and that is not ideal for the wind in the way that typically the west wind blows. So we're just turning that around so that there's more of a blockage for the wind and it's better for our vaulters. And then of course I think there's some storm sewer concerns that were identified in here that we're looking to address in the project. And then I think the other main thing would be, you can see a walkway in between the track and the beyond the track borders there and the fencing. So currently, if you can picture the track, there's like 3 or 4 feet of grass between the track and the fencing line there. We're getting rid of that grass because it really presents a maintenance nightmare, and we're looking to have a path that allows folks to walk around the complex with relative ease, in addition to ADA access, and is in between the track and the outside of the complex. So those are really the main things, and then of course the original scope was the replacing of the turf and the track. So this part of the project has been approved, submitted to state ed, approved. We're looking to go out to bid next month and then hopefully award those bids and bring them back to you for approval in late January, early February. That will set us up nicely for construction as soon as the weather breaks in the spring.
the memorial garden for the young man that lost his life, that's still gonna have to have public access to it?
Yes, absolutely.
Because that's important.
Yes. Yeah, the memorial garden will be preserved, cleaned up, but not removed or the public access removed to that. I think the only other piece that I wanted to mention to you is, down the road, we envision, there's a drainage basin here. For those of you that have seen, we've talked about potentially putting that drainage underground and filling that in to create an entranceway here, or even a courtyard area there for community gatherings, for sporting events, for homecoming, for different events that we might run when we're outside and the weather's nice, which would be a nice tie-in to the building, and it would be more of a seamless transition. The other thing that you'll notice, we currently have 4 tennis courts here with 2 along the property line. So the 2 are removed from the property line. We had a meeting with all of the neighbors that border those tennis courts to talk about what their preference might be relative to new fencing or what we do there. And much to our surprise and pleasure, all of the neighbors indicated that they prefer to keep the existing fencing there, which is cost efficient for us, easier for construction, and it allows us to move forward with moving the tennis court slightly off that property line, but still securing the complex.
Closing the gate on Westmoreland, is that in this piece or that's in the next piece?
Well, it's really just a opening that's like a doorway size opening. So we're just putting a piece of just putting a piece of fencing there.
Well, when are you doing that? In this part?
Yes.
Like
Phase
early?
one.
Yeah.
You know people are gonna cut through that parking lot,
Yeah.
right?
Pardon me?
They're gonna go right through where the trucks pull in for the the maintenance garage is there.
Well, that's gated and.
Yeah, it's gated too.
It's good.
But-
So
okay.
that opens and closes. So when our guys go home at the end of the day, they close it. What we're talking about is there's a gate right here.
Oh, I know
just
where it is
this
because
a-
everybody in my neighborhood uses it. And
Right.
we all go in that way because it's the most convenient, so, and everybody that goes there to run or, the gate gets used a lot. So I'm not a huge fan.
Yeah.
Not a huge fan.
Yeah.
Just to add on to
I mean,
that,
and where are the buses gonna park? In the parking lot? Because that's gonna jam things up. So the teams come and they drop the kids off.
Yeah, they're gonna be
And they
here.
go in,
That's gonna be our buses.
how are they gonna fit? That parking lot's not that big.
Yeah, there's tons of room there.
Okay.
It goes all the way back to the music entrance along that whole area. I mean, the only way for us to have the capacity to secure the complex is to do it this way. Otherwise, we leave it open and we continue to deal with, some of the vandalism and security issues and
You can't
things
just have
that.
another gate on that side?
Yeah, but if if it's locked, it's locked. So we can have a gate there, but if it's locked, it'll be locked. This will be the only one that'll be on a timer that allows us to have it open at 5 in the morning, so the early bird joggers can go out there and access it
question.
without us having to have staff here to actually unlock it.
So I guess that's really extra exercise then, right? Because it's about 150 yards
Now,
extra.
here's the other thing, is there gonna be a button on the inside in case somebody's jogging there at dusk and the thing locks?
Yeah,
You can always
you can always
go
get
off
out.
the path of
Okay.
egress from the
Okay.
inside out, correct,
Yeah, you can always get out. It's getting the other way.
right.
And it's not, the fencing we're talking about here, is we had a lot of discussion about, what message do we want to send? And it's 6-foot chain link fencing. We're not talking about, adding 8 feet or 12 feet and barbed wire or anything like that. Eventually down the road, we're envisioning that we may want to enhance it and put a wrought iron look in there as we look to do some more concrete here and some of the other things we've talked about in our long-range vision plan, so that it would be a nice enhancement to the neighborhood at large. But the fencing we have currently in place is in great condition, so the expenditure is not justified at this point. So I see where, you're torn, and I get it. The idea is that, you what?
I said, I'm not torn, I disagree with it. I can see where, but I can disagree. I just do. Sorry.
Okay, any more questions about that? I think, again, the intent, as we've talked about, was to try to provide a little bit more security, but honor the commitment we had to the community, which was the access, and as our signage indicates, from dusk till dawn. And that's the best way for us to do that.
Just, is there a code as to how many entrances and exits you need to have?
Yeah, we have to have, I don't think there's a code as to how many we need to have, but we certainly have to have ADA compliance. And one of the things that I know the architects worked on very diligently was illustrating to state ed that we will have ADA access here and parking, which will allow them to enter here, and it meets the code as far as that regulation. But in terms of number of entrances to the complex, a lot of places only have one. Given the fact that ours is, kind of in the middle of a neighborhood, that's why we have so many. And again, up till this point, it's wide open. So, anyone can go out there any time of day. And it's always one of those catch-22 things. We don't want to leave the lights on for additional security because it bothers the neighbors, on the streets, the surrounding streets. We have done things that many of you are aware of in terms of hiring private security firms and, having people stationed out there. So I think if we're putting the money into the complex that we're putting into it, and the intention is for it to be nice for many generations to come of athletes and phys ed classes, and for the community, it makes sense to add some additional security. And I'm not sure if, before we move forward, you want to have further discussion, or if you just wanted to publicly note your disagreement with it. I don't really know where to go from here.
I trust your judgment, so, obviously you guys have done a lot of work on it, but I just,
I think the good thing to point out is that there are gates here, and here, and they'll be there. So if there is a change that you would want to make in the future, you can do that, a change to the way that you use it. So
then maybe I didn't
Yeah.
present it correctly. It is going to be a gate. Just currently, it's a gate that has no gate. It's just wide open.
There's an opening, right?
So we're just putting a gate in there that can close, and we have the ability to lock. So if we find that your neighbors are in an uproar because they have to go around here to get in, or down Berryman to get in, then we could always talk about leaving it open.
Right. We could always have my staff open it when they get there in the mornings and lock it when they leave Monday through Friday.
Right.
Just the other electrified gate gives us the intelligence to basically schedule it and allow teams to come in on the weekends, with coach's swipe card to let his team in on a, Saturday morning, or whatever time on the weekend when we may not have staff there. So it gives us, some flexibility when we may want it, shut down in general.
And in the long-range planning, I think we're looking to have a more featured entrance.
Right.
Because this, for the long time, has kind of been the main entrance that folks have come in. And it's nice, but it's not quite the effect, I think, that you see when you enter some other complexes in the region. So we've talked about, having the ability to put a main entrance here, that has some concrete stairways leading up to a complex here with some concrete as opposed to asphalt. Maybe the potential for a more noticeable entrance where we could also put a team room locker rooms, a bathroom, concessions, where it then could also become a community gathering place here for things like homecoming, fall fest, you know, crowds just for the normal sporting events that we have there. We get an awful lot of use out of the complex, that's for sure. Sometimes there's, you know, 2 or 3 games in a night. So.
Just interesting, 18 years ago when I was in Paul's chair, we talked about in the future having some kind of official entrance from the Berryman lot. So it's interesting to hear that you're calling attention to it, because it would be nice to have
Right.
a little more formal entrance to
Right.
it. But just to summarize, the public community will have access like 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock in the morning to the tennis courts and the track from the Berryman side. No matter
Correct.
what- No matter what happens.
Correct. I believe the tennis court entrance is before the gate.
Correct, yes.
So.
And same amount of tennis courts, just a different configuration. right?
Correct.
Correct.
Okay.
Well, one less, I'm sorry, but
Yeah.
right now we have 6, but only 5 are usable,
Okay.
because the 6th one over here is, you know, there's some settling and some foundation issues with it. But yes, you are correct. Tennis courts will be wide open, and then the track, the charge was to the team, design it so that we can accurately say there is no limitation on the community's access to what we currently have. All we're looking to do is secure it a little bit more in those overnight hours.
With all the new changes and security features, are we adding any, like, more cameras and things to it as well, so we can monitor if something were to happen? You know, where we've had kids, you know, burning trash cans on the
Right.
turf in the past, or things
Right.
going on.
And hopefully we'll need less cameras after we, you know, secure it better, but, you know, I know
Well,
Brandon's got
6 foot
quite-
wide, 6 foot high fences, people
Right.
will, you know, scale at some point.
Yeah,
I'm sure.
right. I mean, we're creating a barrier, but certainly if somebody wants to
Kids
go
are
over that
kids.
barrier, you know, with the intent, they'll do it. But currently there is no barrier. We can just walk in there, so.
Yeah,
It
we
will
did
detract
add-
some, but it won't detract all.
We added some additional cameras, and every year we're allowed to add a little bit more with some money that we get from the state, so certainly that's a priority. And some low-level lighting. For example, we put some motion lights on the press box area so that they won't be on all the time, but if somebody starts walking up the bleachers, you know, and they go into the range of motion, they'll click on so that the message is sent that, you know, you're not supposed to be here at all hours of the night. And again, we walk that fine line. We don't want it to look, you know, like it's enclosed with high fencing. And I think we had the same conversation. You know, will 6 feet be enough fencing? But I think when it's closed, most of our community gets the message, oh, it's closed, we don't want them in there. And yeah, there's folks that can jump the fence, but the message is sent now. I think there's people that genuinely believe we're allowed to be here because it's open.
And
So
if
it
you look
should-
at, well, if somebody's gonna go over 6 foot, they'll probably go over 8 or 10 foot, you know, in general, unless you start going to barbed wire, which we didn't want, you know, so. But I think, you know, a good point to the security cameras, now that we'll have a different control points and access points, that would be this is a good plan to review with Brandon, to look at maybe some additional key areas are where, you know, people could congregate, or we're gonna have, you know, more intense flow through the site plan, just to make sure we're covered.
So Dr. Ild has worked very closely, not only with his coaches, but also with our Turner construction management team. So this year, the tennis courts will not be in use for the spring season. However, we did restripe the courts back here behind the middle school so that our tennis team for the spring has quality courts to play on at home. We're looking to, so that will probably be the first piece that the construction begins, and that could be as early as February or March, weather permitting. And then we're looking to front load our field sports and our track meets so that we can get access to that as soon as possible, so it's available by mid-August for fall sports. Right now, I mean, you know how that will play out depending upon weather and several other factors, but at this point, it looks like we should be ready to go with the field for fall sports. And if anything needs to continue construction-wise into September, it would likely be the track. And we don't have track in the fall that would be using the complex. The track that we offer in the fall is cross-country, and they don't use the track itself. So it's looking like the disruption will be as minimal as possible, and it will be to this spring sports. And by the time we get to the fall, we should be in good shape. That's phase one. We still have 2 more to go.
All right, so we'll move on to phase 2, and this is just a summary of what's going on at each of the buildings. As you can see, the focus is mostly on the high school, where we're doing the windows, the music room, some HVAC work, main entry, corridor lockers, doors, and sort of a whole refinishing of all the corridors. Middle school, it's just windows, the parking lot, and tennis courts. And at Smallwood and Windermere, we're doing some replacement of piping in the crawl space for domestic and sanitary and the tennis courts as well. So with our design process, we just really wanted to let you guys know that this isn't a thing that takes place in our office with no contact with anybody. You know, we're not deciding what is to be done for you. And I think the same with Tony and Mark and Laura. They're not sitting there behind closed doors picking, you know, what's best for other people. This has been a very interactive process with all of the end users of sort of the focus groups that we've put together. So we've talked with the music department. We have a list of people that we've talked with about the windows, doors and hardware, main entries, the PA system, IT meetings, and the site at the middle school. So just to bring you up to date with a piece that we had brought to you last time, we talked about the development that we were doing to the music wing. We had this slide with us because this was the kind of notes that we had taken about the option that the music department liked, and we've been working with them to refine that a little bit farther. We got counts of the instruments and things that they need to store. So we've got all of the storage laid out. We have their IT needs, computer stations, sort of looking towards the future of you know what music departments need in music education. So we're getting the technology piece on board now, and really making sure that all of the fine details are going to work and that everybody can envision it and expect what they're going to be getting. So we have little, these are little tools that we brought with us to kind of show people what they're looking at, because it's kind of hard to see in a floor plan.
Yeah, I think that there was a lot of discussion in that user group about storage, sheet music storage, instrument storage, humidity, lots of good rich conversation that you can imagine the sophisticated musicians that we have would bring to the table. So there's many enhancements to storage in the hallway, as well as over here off of the current choral room, and then in each room, both for instruments and music, that will offer some enhancements that our teachers are really looking forward to.
And additionally, that corridor, the music wing gets renovated also with new lighting, ceiling and finishes.
Yeah, just really everything, every surface is being touched in here. So it's going to be, I think, a great big change that, you know, our goal is to make sure that it's a change that everybody is expecting and everybody knows what they're getting because they've asked for it, you know. Another huge scope item to this is the windows at the high school. The middle school as well, but the high school windows are a little more particular because SHPO has a say in what they would like to see here. So we had a lot of meetings about the windows to make sure that we're addressing everybody's needs. So something that SHPO would approve of, but something that also allows, you know, the proper amount of ventilation into a classroom. Something that you know, allows more light through, because currently these were installed in the 70s or 80s, and there's a big metal panel that just blocks half the light that's going into the room. So we've been looking to the original windows, and I think Mark dug up a photo
Hold of your books.
of what the original windows looked like, and we had some original drawings. And with a lot of input from everybody, this is the window type that we have kind of landed on. So it's a single hung window, which is just your basic, you know, window. You lift it up. There's concerns to make sure that it's, you know, operable, that, you know, just no, it's not going to be too heavy for anybody to lift up. So we've been sort of testing that out and, doing site visits where when similar windows have been installed. And we're also, we've had to add a fixed panel at the top, so we couldn't recreate it exactly because over the years, drop ceilings have been added in some of the classrooms. So this is kind of necessary to conceal the lower ceiling level, but you still have a pretty big window in there, so.
Yeah, I think it's similar to what you see in the room here, where there's a metal transom, and as a result of that occurring over the years, obviously we have sliders, but not 3-bay ones. As Jackie had mentioned, the drop ceilings came in, so now when we open that back up, there's risk that you could see from the road or from the front of the facade of the building, the drop ceiling. So we reached a really nice design compromise where we'll have a fixed panel that will be slightly opaque, but then we're really looking to get back to the original architectural integrity of the windows. That's why we've been going back to some of the original photos. So we will have shortly a model for us to use, not only for operability, but for color. So we're looking at, a design that has a very similar, outline here with an off-white sort of border and the vertical muntins inside that will be single hung and will allow us to open them with relative ease. The team traveled to a building that's been renovated, a historic building that's built around the same time as our high school in the region, where a certain manufacturer put these similar windows in, and I think they actually brought like a measuring device, and they opened the windows using that device and measured at like 20 pounds of force
Correct.
to be able to open the windows. So we're trying to be very
Basically
careful.
open one-handed.
Yeah, trying to be very careful to restore the architectural integrity, original architectural integrity of the building, and keep in mind, operability as well as cost and airflow and all those things.
So building on what Tony's saying is just because of the monumental impact we feel, visually these windows are going to have on the facade of the historic building, we're actually going to get a full-size live sample of the windows that we're proposing. That way we can get the sample in here, we can feel the actual operating force based on the size of our typical unit. People can see the color, people can, feel the operation of it. We just feel it's obviously such a big ticket item, dollar-wise, and visual impact on the campus that we feel it's an important step for everybody to see.
So if you go back to the original, I know it might be difficult to see, but this is a slider window similar to what you have there. And then this, all of that is the metal paneling. The only piece that presented a little tricky design challenge, which I think our architects were up for, is since the building was originally built, there are some louvers that have been required by code to be installed in areas that are not only in the brick but also in some of the windows. So we're careful to make sure that the design minimizes the impact of them as much as possible, but it's definitely something we have to deal with.
And that's where we have the, fixed transom in the top. That's where the louver would go in the windows where we have to do that. So it'll either be a, opaque frosted fixed panel or a louver panel in the top. But the bottom, single hung two pieces will always, be consistent.
So will these windows actually open fully?
So the bottom sash will open up fully to this top sash. So you get 50% free area for ventilation.
But you'll end up with, if you go back to the original, you'll end up with, I think this represents a typical classroom here.
Mm-hmm.
You'll end up with 4 operable windows where you currently have 2. 1 and then an emergency.
Right.
So you'll have 4 that.
And ultimately we end up with more area because currently you have a sliding window, but half of the window is a fixed panel. which is non-operable. So in essence, you have only about a quarter operable area, where on our proposed, you have a smaller fixed transom at the top. So you have more free area, connected area in the new window design.
And of course, we're dealing with things like, double pane and energy efficiency and all of those things as well. So not only will they provide more natural light, they'll also probably positively impact our utility bills as well.
There were a lot of considerations with these, and I think we took, a while to get everybody's input to make sure that we, have it right, so.
Well, the fun didn't stop with the high school. We continued the window conversation into this building.
Right, so these are the current windows here at the middle school, and as you can see, they were actually installed around the same time, so that's why they have the same design, same kind of solid panel. And what we're proposing isn't too different in terms of how it's actually composed, but instead of having a solid panel, there's going to be an opaque panel that'll still allow all of the light in. But again, in rooms where the ceilings have been dropped over time, it's going to conceal that. And then the windows are going to operate different too. So you'll have casement windows, which are windows that open out. And you'll have, each of these will be a casement window, basically on each side. And then the middle panel will be either fixed or a rescue window, depending on what it needs to be.
So in a typical classroom at the middle school, you have just 2 operable bays out of the 9, basically. And in the new design, we're going to have 6 out of the 9 operable. So again, getting much more potential ventilation.
Are they fully opening again?
What's that?
Are they fully opening?
They'll fully open like 90 degrees to the plane of the
Yeah,
window.
almost 90 degrees.
Right.
Yeah.
So they won't be sliders, they'll go out, but they'll be 6 out of
6
9
out of
instead
9.
of 2 out of 9.
Right.
The goal was, the charge from my perspective in this meeting was energy efficiency, natural light, and as much or more ventilation than we currently have. Because anything else would have been perceived as not worth the cost. So I think the team did a very nice job with the design that they had there.
Alrighty. The other major part at the high school has to do with freshening up the corridors and the main entry. So this is how everything looks now. As you can see, it's kind of dull. The terrazzo is almost brown looking because there's so many years of wax built up on it. So we actually did a test area where we stripped the years of wax off of it and did a different polishing system. And you can actually see all of the different colors in there. I think it looks pretty good. Everything else is getting a fresh coat of paint, a new ceiling system, and new entry desks. So these are the designs that we've been working with to accomplish all of that. Sort of one of the major contributing factors to, I guess, the chaotic look of the high school right now is that all of the lockers are different. There's some that are recessed, there's some that are out, there's brown ones, yellow ones, green ones, red ones, you name it, it's there. So there's been a push to really standardize everything that is in there. So we're actually removing all of the freestanding lockers. But then in order to maintain the quantity that's necessary, there are a couple areas where rather than having these freestanding lockers in the hallway, we're going to kind of have a little build out around them to make sure that it looks like one cohesive building, no matter which wing of the corridor you're in kind of that historic part.
Yeah, we can't recess them because if we open up the wall, we're in danger of some, hitting some mechanical things or asbestos. So the next best alternative back in the day was to put the lockers just kind of freestanding. This will enhance the look so that they all look recessed throughout the building. We also have, I don't know if you're going to mention this, but we're also putting some crown molding in here. There's existing crown molding, and we're going to build it out to allow access for cabling to run through there without it being visible to the public or to the students. And we're also looking to do some drop ceiling and working with SHPO to make sure that the architectural integrity of the beams that exist are not covered, so the drop would be low enough where the beam would still be exposed, but it would give us a fresh new look relative to the ceiling.
And that's especially at the main entry, because as you know, you walk into the high school now and you're just there in the corridor. This is kind of creating an entry zone, so we're putting kind of fancier lighting around the entry, really kind of creating a dropped area above the desk to say, this is the entry zone, this is where I'm supposed to be. I'm not supposed to be wandering anywhere, I'm supposed to be at this desk checking in.
So we are looking to put in LED lights in most of the corridors, energy efficient, bright. It will really brighten the corridors, with the exception of this main hallway when you come in from Main Street, where you can see we put some chandelier type lights and some recessed lights to really enhance that entryway when you come in from Main Street, and make it look very sophisticated and architecturally pleasing. And then there's a desk, and you combine sort of the historic look of the building with a high-tech look by putting a nice desk and centerpiece, but then with a high-tech LED panel there where we can display messages, but it's surrounded by nice wood and trim work. So it's really kind of a blend of old and new, keeping that fresh look that I think keeping that architectural integrity that most people admire so much about our high school.
And all the doors are getting replaced too. I'm not sure if that was mentioned. So we have sort of a mishmash of doors throughout the year, so there'll be new, standardized, looking doors of a historical nature, with, better, consistent operating hardware too for security.
You mean like classroom doors or entrance doors?
Classroom doors. Most of the exterior doors are new and past projects. We're gonna, touch the main entry exterior door, but then all the classroom doors, all the stairwell doors, that are sort of ganged three, doors with glass around them per stair opening are all getting redone.
We're also doing enhancements to the stairwell when you first walk in the doors from Main Street, which aren't pictured here, but it will be brightened. We may preserve the chandelier or provide one very similar that actually works and brightens the entryway, painting the walls, cleaning up the brick that's there, putting some sconces. So it will definitely enhance the appearance of it, and it will give us that effect when you walk in, that awe effect, like I'm in Amherst Central High School. It'll be a proud entryway.
A little lighting will go a long way. So to move on to, I guess, the last major item that we're going to talk about tonight is the parking lot here at the middle school. And we had done a lot of work with you guys before the referendum to decide how to budget for this and what basic concept we were interested in pursuing in order to solve all of the challenges of this current parking lot. So that was sort of where we left off here. This is the result of fine-tuning it after a few meetings with the staff here to make sure that all of the really bad problems are actually being addressed by this. So if you remember, one of the major issues of concern is that if there's an event happening here at one of these fields, there's cars that are currently parked along the side, and there's really no place for people to gather that's off the sideline, so there's always kids running back and forth here, and if you're trying to drive, it's a little dangerous, it's crowded. So in order to alleviate that, we actually have pushed the access way over to the property line so that nobody could possibly park there. And it also frees up a lot of space here for people to actually gather whenever they're watching.
Yeah, I think we estimate 10 to 12 feet additional sideline space there.
And then the other change is sort of this additional parking and drop-off loop here for some of the buses. But this is to make sure that if we're encouraging people to use this parking lot rather than park on the street or park back here, that there's enough to accommodate everybody and that there's enough to accommodate all of the events that you guys have too. And it also provides a really convenient access to, with this walk here, to get to this field that's kind of out there. So nobody has to be parking out here on the street and, or out here in dangerous situations. The other problem that we were trying to solve is the issue of the bus traffic and the staff traffic. Since they leave at the same time, there's always people cutting across here and interfering with the buses. So this is an area that's going to be built out so that you aren't going to be able to take a car through here. You're going to have to go through an actual sort of, not intersection, but it's going to feel like there's an actual route to go. And there's going to be a crosswalk here that sort of indicates, hey, you need to slow down.
And we'll probably go with a different material,
Yeah.
whether it's a colored concrete or a stamp pattern, just to differentiate that pedestrian crossing going from the main building out to the fields.
And then the bus situation is actually going to be exactly how it currently is, because that was something that you guys had, really worked on to get it right and really precisely measured to make sure that the way that students are picked up at the end of the day works. So that's going to remain as is. Is there anything else you want to add?
I just think it really, the new plan helps just really enhance and separate the different types of traffic, from pedestrian to bus to vehicular on the site. Where currently there's a lot of overlap and confusion, and currently if you look at what's out there now, you don't even have good pedestrian access around the site. Where if you look at what's proposed, you can ring the entire site now around the athletic complex with sidewalk. So you defined areas where you should walk and safe areas where people can get around.
And we've had, again, this is looking for the future as well. We've had discussions about, additional artificial surfaces for playing fields, whether it be a multi-use complex that incorporates softball, baseball, and fields in between. We've also talked a lot about an area here, which is our current middle school pool and gym, and some potential expansion here to a more featured complex that one might call an auditorium or something like that. So we're trying to make sure that everything we're doing now, we have an eye on the future of what we may propose and look for, so that we're not getting in our own way, so to speak, when we look to enhance our facilities more down the road.
Are we maintaining the same number of tennis courts in the middle school?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, these are just being resurfaced.
So there's no change there?
Correct.
Resurfaced and I think a new fencing.
Yep.
Yeah.
Right.
Any other questions about phase 2? Okay, well, we'll move on to phase 3, which is a quick update because we haven't done anything yet. But we will be getting into the cafeteria and kitchen, home and careers rooms, art rooms, the shop rooms, computer labs, some additional field improvements, and then again some more HVAC work to make sure that all of the systems are up and running how they should be. So we're anticipating a lot more, user group meetings, and we're going to keep up with the same process of having a lot of interaction, because I think that's really what has a successful project, where everybody knows their options and then they know what they're getting to.
Yeah, and the phase 2 planning is, if you go back to the beginning, I know you had the phases and the timeline there. We're not due to submit phase 2 plans to state ed until I think this spring or summer.
It's going to be at the end of January.
Okay,
So,
because we anticipate 6 to 8 months. What is the
for
approval time?
mechanical,
Review
the mechanical review time is probably, it's a little bit of a wild card right now,
Right.
because I think it's around 10 months, but they're doing a lot of work to reduce that review time. So SED has made a lot of changes that they're kind of making everybody aware of. So we're not really sure, if it's going to be a dramatic decrease, but we would rather be safe than sorry.
Well, and that is not necessarily the main point I wanted to make, as much as we're targeting what in our timeline for construction on phase 2.
For phase 2, it's really going to start, we're planning on bidding next December, we'll say. And then construction can kind of start that spring, summer, and follow through for the next 2 summers following that.
So we're looking really at December of 2021 before phases 2 and 3 come to fruition in terms of the completion of the construction. So it will be, and there's significant work and will be under construction for a while, but I think in the end, when you see the plans, there's light at the end of the tunnel and a significant amount of excitement as to the enhancements that we have proposed.
It's nice to see a lot of the long-term planning though, I guess, in the process, you know, thinking ahead of what might come down the road, whether we do it or not, but
Yeah, that's.
it's part of the planning process.
So really what we wanted to do is give you an update on where we are with phase 2 planning before we move forward with submitting that to the state. The next time we come back, you know, we'll have an update on phase 1 construction and phase 3 planning. Any questions? Thank you very much.
All right.
The second item in the superintendent's report is an exciting event that took place just last week at the Damon College. Mr. Pigeon and Mrs. Paul Saladino and Mrs. Abels are here from the high school to share the exciting and highly successful Challenge to Change project that Amherst Central High School is really pioneering in the region and working with not only the town of Amherst but also schools beyond our borders in Amherst to bring awareness, you know, around the conversation of race and ethnicity in the town of Amherst.
Yes, thank you very much. Really a pleasure to be here, and I'm excited to share with you about the movement we've started, essentially. It's called Challenge to Change. This has been a little bit more than a year in the making. Sue Paul Saladino came to me probably September-ish last year with a program that she became aware of, basically a change program, started in Ferguson, Missouri, and moved up in Rochester, had a number of summits in place that they had done over the past couple of years. So Sue Paul and Mark Jones and Nan Abels went down to Greece Athena last November, and checked out one of their summit models, and I attended one in Rochester in March. So we really were excited about the concept of these type of summits. The goals of Challenge to Change are really to be able to build racial understanding and unity in giving our students the opportunity to have those conversations. We know we've been through a difficult stretch the past year in this country, and we know it affects our kids. We've had conversations about that. We've worked out that in the high school, the reactions to the elections, some of the events that are happening in our country really bring forth the need for students to basically have an opportunity to talk about these things. And also just move unity in our culture with the culture of our district, culture of our community. So we want to give students an opportunity to lead in those ways and build those leadership skills within them to have those conversations and really build around a summit model, but a number of initiatives within our building that will bring forth unity and really give students the opportunity to have these thorny conversations about race. So Challenge to Change is a summit model, and our mission really was to do what I just said, to build that unity in our community and also build the student leaderships to tackle these difficult societal issues. One of the primary goals was to address issues of race and racial understanding and do that in a safe space with trained adult professionals. Also to shift race relations and have an opportunity in the space and oxygen for students to really have collaborative conversations. And do that in a realm where we're incorporating multiple school districts. It's not just about Amherst Central High School. Although we're proud to lead it, we had all 3 Williamsville schools there, Sweet Home, and we also had Kenmore East and West, as well as a group of students from the Amherst Youth Board, which had many private schools in it. 250 adults and students in all, 200 students, 50 adults were involved in the program. One of the other goals is really to educate students and really build leadership skills within them within those students, it's not easy to have conversations about race. And before we would, rush into those type of conversations, they need to be had. But students need to have skills. They need to be educated. They're still teenagers. So we, as part of our model, working with UB and their School of Social Work, working with the Town of Amherst Youth Board, one of our goals was to bring these agencies on board, the steady hands of these wonderful agency partners, and build those leadership skills within students so they can approach conversations like this in a positive manner with the skills to be able to navigate and negotiate those kind of conversations, and do that successfully, and have those skills now embedded in our students moving forward to many, many initiatives. This was not meant to be a one and done type of summit. It was really meant to be a movement that we move forward with a number of initiatives in the building. I just wanted to ask Sue Paul to come forward and really share a little bit about what brought her interest in this model and how it kind of connects to our culturally responsive teaching initiative that's well mature in this district, well over 10 years, as well as her experience with our CIA club.
Hi, I'm a special ed teacher at the high school, and I also co-teach in the history department. And Greg touched upon a few things that I just wanted to make sure were mentioned. And one of them is, the idea of global citizenship for the kids. And working in CIA, and CIA is a club that started about 12 years ago. It's an after-school activity, and it's an acronym that stands for
Covenant Action.
Covenant in Action. And it's named after Tavis Smiley's book. Tavis Smiley wrote a book called Covenant for Black America, and wrote an additional book called Covenant in Action. And the students named the club Covenant in Action, and it was about 12 years ago. And I'm the teacher that works with the kids after school, and a lot of the things that they would talk about out of frustration and wanting to feel like they could do something, wanting to feel like they could make a change somehow, and how could they do that? And I started searching last summer for something for them to do outside of just the school day that would make them feel empowered. And I found this program in Ferguson, Missouri, and contacted them to see how they worked with the students and what were the kinds of things that they did. And one of the things that Greg didn't mention was they pulled in Washington University School of Social Work to help them develop the breakout sessions that they did with their students. Because I know a lot, but I really don't know how to facilitate this topic. It's a tough topic to facilitate, but the kids really were asking for some help and wanted to feel like they could talk about these things with each other. So the breakout sessions were designed by, and how it happened with UB was I sent an email to the chairman of the Department of Social Work at UB, and I said, blah, 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 this is what I read. Is there anybody there who would be interested in working with us and doing something like this with our kids? And I heard back from Dr. Kelly Patterson, and she invited me to come up and meet with them, and I went up there and met with her and two of her colleagues, and Anna Ball was one of the colleagues that was there who works with school social workers. And she's the one who has worked with us this whole year, developing the breakout sessions and working with her graduate students. And I really thought it was important because I'm old, you know what I mean? And the kids aren't going to necessarily engage with me like they might somebody who's a little closer to their age. So I really wanted her to have graduate students work with our kids. And I thought it'd be good for the graduate students and it would be good for our kids. And so the model that we came up with was she had one graduate student working with 10 of our students. There were 20 groups of 10. And we had one of our kids who we called change agents, who we did a mini summit with last year at the high school, and one of the UB students. And it was really magical how it went. It really was magical. The kids were really quiet in the beginning because we forced them to all interact with each other. We didn't let the kids sit with their friends. We mixed up all the schools. And some of them were pouting in the beginning of the day. And then by the end of the day, they were all laughing and talking and really, really had a good time. But I'm really proud of what we did as a district. And I have to thank Greg, because Greg, I mean, when I went in and first said it to him, he's doing like this to me, he didn't say you're crazy, but he didn't tell me no. He said, go find out some more information. And then he was completely supportive through the whole process, and he actually got a grant. You didn't mention that, but I mean, he's going to talk to you more
Upcoming
about
in
it.
the prison.
Yeah, upcoming. But anyways, it was really uplifting and wonderful, and I appreciate the support that Greg provided us, and it made us look so good, you know what I mean? But the kids really got a lot out of it. They got a lot out of it. I've done a lot of work with the adults in the district since since the very beginning of our culturally responsive teacher training, and since 2004. But I've always felt like we fell short with the kids. So this was really a great start to something that, you know, we want to continue moving forward with, and continue to develop these global citizens that we have here. So that's it.
Thank you very much.
Sure.
And it was exciting. We did get to speak with the founder of the movement from Missouri area, Ferguson, Drew Schwartz, and we've stayed in touch with him through the development of our model. One of the very gratifying things as well is we've become close with the Rochester team. Jeff Crane, the superintendent of West Irondequoit, is the champion of that movement in the Rochester area. He's kept in close contact with me. He helped recruit by speaking with the other superintendents in the area because they knew him in terms of the steady hands of this type of summit model and such. And a couple of folks did travel down to 90 from Rochester to attend our summit. So that was fun. And they had one the subsequent day. They're on their 6th summit. They had one at Brockport High School with 600 students. So
Yeah, along those lines,
Yeah.
I was going to mention they were looking for ideas from ours for theirs, but they did mention they were having their 6th one the next day, 600 students attending.
Yeah.
But the positive thing from my perspective is their first one had many fewer students than our first one. So at 200 students, they said we are far advanced compared to where they started. So this movement certainly will grow exponentially when you look at how it's grown in other parts of the state.
Yeah, we are absolutely looking forward to that. Sue had mentioned Dr. Ball at UB in the School of Social Work was a big partner, and it was exciting for them, and they even have ideas now of moving forward to expand how it affects their program and get their students more involved, may even become a class over there. So we're excited about that long-term partnership. We did bring in some local musicians, Eric Crittenden, who is one of our parents, a Smallwood parent, as well as had a graduate, was involved with another young artist, plays Mercedes, so that gave a nice youth touch to it, added a nice element of art to the program. And we brought in a wonderful keynote speaking, Kara Oliver, who is the director of the opportunity programs at Niagara University, who just really opened up with a very powerful keynote. So we got off to a very good start, and the kids really were engaged in that keynote, and we did get excellent feedback. And we had a wonderful partner in Damon who helped us host the event, and they just really did a nice job for us. It was a nice venue for a summit, so that really helped with the panache of the program. This was what the program looked like in terms of the actual activities. I mentioned the keynote and the welcome and explaining our mission. We started with a program. The first session was an icebreaker in the key vocabulary of change, which is part of the program that we developed firsthand with our Amherst folks, with Sue Paul Saladino, Mr. Mark Jones, and Nan Abels. We all worked together on that program, so we got off to a great start to get an icebreaker out of the way, as well as to really build that foundation of a common language about vocabulary surrounding race, ethnicity, and all of the things that you really need to have the right language to move forward in courageous conversations about race. You want to have a common language. So we built that in that session. At that point, UB kind of took over, and they had their session 1 and session 2. They had 25 social work interns working in that program, as well as a number of their professors came, so that they really did a nice job. Those students did a wonderful job. Those master's degree students, I should say, and our students as well. We had a change agent, one of our students that we trained in April, in each one of the groups as well to help facilitate those programs. So they really blossomed as leaders, and they were they were on a big high coming out of that program in terms of their self-esteem, what they gained in terms of education, as well as their excitement moving forward to add other elements to this program and other events that we can do that'll really move the culture forward. So there was 2 wonderful UB sessions. All of the materials from the sessions are in your packet, so if you want to take a look at what those sessions consisted of. But they were small group, 10 students mixed up from the different schools. We had breakout locations for those particular breakout sessions, and it went very, very well. And we really witnessed a lot of really deep and robust engagement that the students got involved in. A lot of the teachers, the chaperones that were there, were just in awe of how well their students participated at such a deep level, and just were thrilled about the program. So we got a lot of excellent feedback from the teachers and the other folks that had joined us for the program. We also closed the session with an action planning toolkit that UB put parts of it together, and we put part of it together, because we, like I said initially, we didn't want this to be a one and done event. We wanted it to really start a movement and give the schools some ideas, some tools that they can use to move things forward in their own districts. Many of the districts do have initiatives going as well in this realm, but it was looking to give them a little bit of a soup starter, a little bit of boost and caffeine in their programs, so that really they can get to be more robust as they move along. This just some pictures. It was a big gathering. It really was a nice venue. We added media, so we had a slideshow running, an inspirational slideshow running the whole time. And as you could tell, people were engaged and really having a nice time. I was lucky to receive a grant from Teaching Tolerance magazine. Teaching Tolerance is a nationwide magazine that focuses on the topic of tolerance and race and ethnicity. So they supported us with a $2,700 grant. So it really helped pay for the majority of the program. And we're hoping that we can get some features in their magazine down the road as we follow up with their grant compliance, and they really want to feature us in the magazine. So that was an exciting connection to have. And we kind of tied it all together with some social media presence. What we wanted to do moving forward was have some type of vehicle to continue to promote the program. So we created a Twitter account, and it's done quite well. I noticed today, before I was preparing for the presentation, in the short week and a half or week launch we've had of the program, we've had over 1,200 hits on our posts. So it's getting a lot of activity. These are small to read, but it's in your packet. The posts that students were posting that day and after were very, very positive. I think the students felt that there was a lot of impact, and they really were very, very positive in terms of what they took away from the program. Our partners, that's a post that Williamsville East High School put forward in terms of how much value they garnered from the program. And there's just more positive information there about how the schools really enjoyed the program and how we're looking forward to moving together to the next phases. And that's really where we're at now. We're going to follow up with a debrief with all of our partners so that we can work together and talk together about what things can we do collaboratively together to move this movement forward, as well as who's going to take the baton for the next summit, because it is a handoff baton type of setup. And we really want to encourage the next school district. Hopefully one of these participants will follow up with a summit of their own, and we can continue to grow the model over time. So in a nutshell, I want to thank Dan Abel, Sue Paul Saladino, and our team. We have met for a year, countless meetings, countless plannings, to really make sure that our district was shining bright in this scenario in terms of moving and stepping out on that ledge of a difficult topic, a groundbreaking area to really work with, but making sure it was seamless, that it was high quality, professional, polished type of operation, and really had to ultimately be meaningful and really move down to make a difference of our kids, what they experience in the climate and culture of our building, as well as how they can impact this wonderful community, the North Towns, the town of Amherst. It was fun having that partnership with those folks we know from those other schools. But I think we know them a lot better, and we're really aligned now around some common goals. So we're looking forward to a bright future with the program. Does anybody have any questions?
Oh, thank you, sounds awesome. It's
Yeah, this is
so
terrific.
amazing. We need these in adult world too.
Yes, yes.
How many of our own students would have attended?
We had close to 50 of our own, half of which were first-time participants, and the other half were our trained change agents. So we had a nice cadre from Amherst, so it was a nice showing. Williamsville, with the 3 high schools, had, if you count the youth board, which kind of like their 4th high school, they had almost 100 students there as well. So we could have had more if the venue would have held more. We wanted to make sure we didn't cramp too many students in and make it uncomfortable. But I had contacted Williamsville at one point, and they were hoping that can you maybe open up 10 extra slots per school, but we couldn't because we didn't have the capacity. So I think just naturally this could have been a 300-400 student event. We just didn't have the size. And that's some of the challenges we've had in Rochester is finding big venues for these. So moving forward, we hope to grow and maybe bring out a partner or a sponsor that could help us maybe book like a convention center or big conference facility so we can have big events. Any other questions? Well, thank you for your support. I know it's something that folks don't always want to walk into in terms of the topic, but we appreciate your support and your willingness to let us do this.
And I don't know if you hit on it or not, but Mr. Pigeon did reach out to an organization called Teaching Tolerance, and he was able to secure a grant of around $3,000 that helped pay for a lot of the materials. So thank you for the work that you've done in a time when the national landscape can be characterized by divisiveness. I'm proud that Amherst stepped forward to take the lead in the area of unity. Really proud of everything you've done. Thank you.
Thank you.
So we have one more topic in the superintendent's report. Dr. Schoenfeld is here to report out to the board and public the very successful superintendent's conference day that we had on election day, November 7th.
Thank you.
I know there's been 3 presentations, and I'm looking forward to mine, and I'll keep it as brief as I can. I'm excited to talk to you about Superintendent Conference Day. It was on November 7th. A lot of work goes into it, but we did a lot of things to try to make it a day that was special for the people that involved and have some takeaways that will really impact the classroom. I'll start off, normally I don't read from a slide, but I thought this would put a good context. There was an article in May of 2017 in Education Week, and it spoke to quality professional development, which talks about it as it happens with, not to teachers. It connects to a broader vision of where and how the school and district can grow over time. It creates space and time for authentic collaboration, and it's something passively received, but rather it is interacted with and created through purposeful engagement. So that sets a tone. Principal Lewis was a presenter. He was also an attendee throughout this day. He has a quote that sort of sums it up, and then we'll work from there. I am pleased that our Superintendent Conference Day on November 7th, 2017 met and surpassed the criteria listed above. Through conversations with faculty and staff and through my own experiences as a presenter and attendee, a general sentiment of the day was one of appreciation and of the differentiated opportunities offered. The thoughtful selection of workshops allowed us, as passionate educators, to reflect and refine on our own practices. Further opportunities to interact with colleagues in deep and meaningful ways supports the vision of our district's strategic plan as we work in unison towards achievement of our priorities and initiatives. So I thought you'll hear quotes like that normally at the end of the presentation, but I think it sets up what that experience was like through his eyes and many others. A snapshot of the day. Here are some things I just want to talk about what the context of the day was. There's a basic continental breakfast where people gathered. It was followed by a keynote address, which was about the capturing the heart of a student or your student. There was a required course that we had offered to everybody called ClassLink, which we rebranded as TigerLink for Amherst, and I'll talk more about that. Then there were over 50 offerings, 1-hour offerings that faculty, staff, administrators and outside consultants came in. That was something that was offered in 4 areas, and I'll show you a little bit about each one. But the areas of academics, technology, health and wellness, and relationships. And for lunchtime, we did something that some of our schools have done before. We brought in food trucks. We had a set amount of time, and we had some help with the PTA and Rich Crozier over at Smallwood. So we had 8 food trucks out in the parking lot, and at lunch we were able to then eat, visit with colleagues that you don't normally see, and then be able to move on and get more, I'll say, professional development time in. So that was helpful. And the last thing, which I think is very helpful when you're doing professional development, is having a survey or an exit ticket and then taking that data back and looking closely at it so you can enhance those opportunities moving forward. I'll move on to our keynote. We did have Mike Masters with us, educator, practitioner. He does coaching. He works with colleges and different groups of schools throughout locally, but also nationally. He did a specific conversation about overcoming challenges. In this situation, he talked about climbing the proverbial ladder, and that's what we're trying to help all of our students to do. And it takes really educators that have those character qualities that can help our students to reach the top of that. And we did have the TIGERS was an acronym which talks about having toughness, integrity, grit, excellence, respect, and success for our students. So it was something that motivated, engaged our learners, and we represented each of the buildings when we did this particular activity. Coach Masters after that was one of our presenters, and I'll talk about outside presenters, but he talked specifically about being in the classroom and the vision of your classroom, where oftentimes our practitioners do a lot of great work, but they don't always think about, well, what is that vision? What do I want to? So he sort of recalibrated and had a conversation. I know the one group I had, he said, 6 words. I need you to put your vision in 6 words. That's it. And people came up with and really reflected on what's a way I can, share a little bit about what I do and why I do it in my classroom. And a lot of it's making connections with students and the people you're working with. I'll explain a little bit about ClassLink. This is a progressive technology. We're really the first district in our area to do this. It's a web-based program, but I'll call it a one sign-in launch pad. So you would sign in one time, and you would have a multitude of websites you can see on the screen there. Those are little apps that the dashboard, when all of our staff and students eventually will log on, it will have your Gmail right there. It will have the accounts like Aspen that you go into regularly, and you don't have to sign in and remember. I'm not good at remembering all my passwords. It takes me a couple times. You sign in once, you're on. There's other benefits too, because we can push out apps to certain groups. So the library could have resources that they've already started to create some. We've done that ourselves. So any web-based programs, you could do that. They also have access to their work files. So we do have Google Drive that you're in the Google platform that you can go to certain files you want. But we also have an X Drive, which we maintain in our own district, and it's backed up. But teachers can now access that from anywhere. Once they log into their TigerLink at home or on their Chromebook or on their phone, they can literally go in and retrieve a file and work on something in Office Online, or Office 360 is an option. So it's really like a personal office that we now have, that capability for our faculty. And oftentimes I'm in the technology department as well. We trained everyone, probably 98% of our staff was trained that day in the auditorium. We had Chromebooks available, so we can help support that. It's normally a 40-minute session of training, and it was a 1-hour-long training, so they had some time to work with it. So far, knock on wood, it's rolled out very well. We're getting a lot of positive feedback. Our plan is the beginning of 2018 to offer this opportunity to the students, especially we've already had some high school teachers asking, can we start this with our students? Because they would have an interface and an opportunity to get to different things that they normally don't do, the one sign-in. So that is something we're looking at moving towards in the near future.
I think just to illustrate the significance of that, a typical teacher would have a network sign-in that they use, which is a username and password. They would have an Aspen one to take attendance and use their grade book at the secondary level. Typically, everyone's using eDoctrina for their observations and the things we're doing with APPR. And then any web-based software beyond that they might be using, like Imagine Learning or IXL, or things that you may have experienced with your kids or heard about here at the board meeting. This gives them the opportunity to log in once, and then when you click on those icons, it automatically brings them to those apps and they're logged in. So the tendency I know for myself is to try to use the same password for a lot of different things, so I only have one to remember, which isn't necessarily the best in the world of cybersecurity. This allows you the opportunity to only remember one password, but also maintain that security because it's a launch pad from this single sign-on platform. And then, as Dr. Schoenfeld mentioned, it also came with the Office Online suite to allow us access to our files digitally. So it really goes nicely with the thoughtful plan we put together to roll out Chromebooks within our district, not only to the students but also the staff. And this just takes what we've done to the next level.
Now, everyone went to this for an hour. For other time periods, we had 4 sessions offered, and there were 4 areas offered as well. So the different timestamps, I'll just talk about the offerings. We try to be holistic in the sense that we have academics, technology, wellness, and I wanted to share specifically relationships as the other area. But with academics, this will show probably half of the offerings. Out of the 54 offerings, there'll be slides that represent 26 of them, just to let you know. So we had a lot of great presenters. A couple of things I just want to point out in here. Project Lead the Way is what we're implementing at the middle school. So we thought it made a lot of sense to sort of show some of the teachers, because we're looking also at the elementary level and the high school level. So they did some hands-on projects and made a cube, but they talked specifically about what's being offered there. In the bottom right area, we had all the elementary teachers and the support staff that worked with teachers with mathematics in pre-K through 2nd grade meet, and also 3rd grade through 5th grade. This summer we spent a lot of time talking about instruction in the math area, specifically explicit instruction and the terminology you use. So that explicit language, they took time to talk about that. So we did have reading specialists and some of other support staff there, teaching assistants, because they're working with our students and need to know that sort of stuff. Teaching through the episodes is our framework that we use, typically with teachers, so it was good to have that offered. And the flipped classroom model is what you may have heard before, where you'll go home and watch a video about what you should learn, and then the next day you do a lot of interactive work with the teachers. So that's one area of academics. I'm just showing you a couple things. Relationships, there was some work done based on John Gordon's work that we did this summer on defining your moment. Our TCIS, or a therapeutic crisis intervention service system that we do to help students in need systematically, was put in place. And then, similar to Challenge to Change, cultural responsive teaching has again been a mature practice here, and we're continuing that as well to help with our student population. With technology, there's a lot of things that we're here. Our innovation lab is a new area that we did have one at the high school, but we've transformed the middle school area to be more innovative. So Mr. Schmidley showed all those opportunities that are there for our teachers and the opportunities that can be present in other library media specialist areas. The Google virtual reality you've seen before, Screencastify, where you're able to teach something or record something as you're showing it, which Mr. Pigeon did, and then Turnitin was really something used with our English department primarily, and it's something that's important. It helps with plagiarism at times too, so it's something that we wanted to expand out to other people if they want to use that. Not that it happens, but there's not a lot of software things to be able to see that easily with the amount of reading and writing they look at. The one thing a lot of people shared positive results when we've done this before was health and wellness. So platform Fit for Life is an individualized program that's there. Eating Healthy, where we had them working on what are some snacks you can do. Foam rolling is something that was extremely popular, but how can you work on your muscle tissue? And that is yoga, and that is me. That I saw them do it the first time and thought, I don't know about that, but then there's some stool and they helped guide me, and they did help me get down. But it was invigorating, and I felt good, and a little de-stressed, and it was all good. But these types of offerings, again, we have a self-funded healthcare program, and we didn't do it specifically because of that, but the health and wellness of our people, matter to us carrying out positive work and being refreshed and being healthy. So we did have a lot of offerings here that were popular and something we want to continue. The last area, The last area that I just want to touch upon, some of this came to us because people from the Holocaust Resource Center of Buffalo wanted to join in this day, so they asked, is there an opportunity where we can interface with your teachers and talk to them about what they offer? And we had some really dynamic time in that session. Dr. Meichenbaum we've worked with before in different settings, and it was suggested he's probably a good person we should use in other ways. And he came in, and people were very excited about what he was sharing about some of the behavior and how you can work with coming up with a plan to help support students and families. So he's someone we're going to continue that relationship with. BOCES we continually work at, and they were showing us some technology. Global Competence is looking at our world differently as our global market and the way we're teaching and learning. It's very different that you're looking at things as a career even differently than we used to in the past. And Restorative Practices is really looking at, again, behavior systems and ways that we can help our students to understand what they do and really counsel through that in a positive, proactive way. The specified sessions, these were ones that we had, I'll say these were more required, but more because there was a need. The bottom right corner is LOTE, and that's our language, classes. We oftentimes wouldn't bring our French, Latin, and Spanish teachers together, but we brought all our secondary teachers together to talk about what's happening and what are some of the changes. One of the Mrs. Maranta went to a conference recently, and she was able to present on that and have real conversation about their practice. We had probationary teacher support, which is the first time we've done this, but we're going to have a 5-session probationary teacher optional gathering where we'll be led through the essential elements of instruction and what's good practice. And we do a new teacher orientation, but we want to continue to support them through their first 3 years. So we brought all of those people in for the first session, and we'll be offering those out throughout the year. Art and music have some new standards, so we were lucky to have Mrs. Scudder bring in the art department and the music department. Also our clerical staff, although they do a lot of work behind the computers at times and they're very valuable, they oftentimes don't have those updated supports with Google and Microsoft. So we were able to tap into the high school programming and support them. So Mr. Hines helped with that. WinCap is also with Mrs. Bazinski. We do a lot of work with different clerical staff and our budget, and that's important. Over time, there's different understandings of things, and I always do it this way. I know I'm, maybe supposed to do it this way, or you lose sight of things. She was able to talk to them about some of the practices that are in place, some things they're going to be looking closer at and enhancing. And the art department had some time to get together. I know you may have seen Monsters in Art that was over at Demon at the end of last year. They met together and we gave them some time to talk about what might be a K through 12 project that they can put in place this year to sort of unify our district and show the arts in a different way. So those were some of the things. I wanted to highlight. I talked about an exit ticket, and great instruction has closure, and it also has opportunities to get feedback. So we did push out a Google form, and 327 people responded. There's a way you could ask them to fill out every single question, so there were 4 questions. But this was a basic satisfaction rating. Not satisfied at all is all the way to the left on the one side, and extremely satisfied is on the 6. So those mathematicians could have figured this out, but 5 and 6 there ended up being 75% of our teachers felt it was in that 5 and 6 range. And 4, 5, and 6 past the middle, we had 93% of our people at least feeling, I want to say, positively satisfied about that. Again, we have some 1s at the bottom, a 1%, 1%, and 5% there. So there are some folks that it might not have fit as well as they wanted it to, and we had a broad sense of people. This was anonymous. It makes me feel pretty good about it, but it also makes me want to move more of this over in the future. So some of the feedback from the other questions would help. This is something that really came from our superintendent, the idea when he addressed them at the beginning. Whenever you go to a conference or something, try to come up with one thing you could walk away and then apply it to your work. So this was asking them to do that. A lot of people answered various things just in general, strategies of their new learning specific to the session. So if I went to a particular session, I might have gained something and then I'm looking to apply that. So that was something consistently shared. TigerLink, people really like that idea of this dashboard and that ability. Also, people talked about positive relationships. I know I'm a believer in research in my practice that relationships are key to everything. And that came out as the positive mindset, and positive relationships were a lot of the things that were expressed as things they can do differently. Some of that too is interacting with students differently, where you might pay more attention when they come in after being absent. That if there's an attendance thing and you don't even notice that they're not there, they might not respond. And if you do recognize that, it makes them feel more accepted. And so this wasn't just for individuals; it was also their impact in the classroom. The best part of the day, there were different pieces, but the one thing that prominently came through was choices, that teachers had some choice. We did a private registration for everyone, and we said, choose your top 3 choices for this session and this session. Some people had more choices depending on how many required things they went to, but they definitely wanted that. They also wanted more offerings. It might have been a counselor that said, it would have been nice if there was something on this. We had, again, over 50 offerings, so you can't have too many because then you only have 2 and 3 in a group. I think we had smaller numbers, but it made it more intimate. You had real conversations with people. You can respond to their questions. Some of the other best parts of the day was the keynote speaker, positive, motivating. So people felt invigorated even the next day. Feedback was people were buzzing, feeling very good. The wellness aspects I already mentioned was very positive, and although it sounds silly, the lunch trucks people really love, but they also love that time to meet with their colleagues, and I found that it's twofold. You can eat quickly, get something good. You might not always dine that way, but it gave you an opportunity to meet and have real conversation with colleagues you might not see throughout the district. The last question, what is a suggestion to enhance future? They were really looking for more opportunities to choose. If you were a probationary teacher at the elementary school, you would have gone to the math. You would have also gone to this probationary, setting. You would have gone to TigerLink, and you would have had lunch. So you would have had potentially one choice, so one session that you would have a choice to. So what they were saying there is, I'd rather have 2 or 3 that I could go to. So that's something, again, when there's mandated things like TigerLink, we need to do, it sort of reduces the amount of choices you could have. But in this situation, some people were saying it would have been nice to have more choice to go to other sessions. One thing that sometimes it was different on the feedback, but more times than not, they were saying 1 hour of time to talk about something was not enough. that you were involved in an activity or having some conversation, but they would have liked that to have been a longer period of time, than an hour and a half or 2 hours. Whereas a couple people were saying, oh, I wish it was shorter. Some people said, I wish lunch was shorter, so I'd have more time to do more of those sessions, which was also positive as a feedback. So as I mentioned before, this was a quote that just came in that just said, continue with teacher choice. That was something prevalent. Options were definitely appreciated by our teachers. Thank you for arranging such a meaningful day. Also, Mr. Crozier had a quote, and really the bottom part in short, I'll mention, the Amherst gem was polished as we once again provided our team with the achievement, tradition, and pride that our district stands for. And I talked to the faculty that day too about, we do have a gem in Western New York, and that's the Amherst Central School District, but we do have to polish that and make those colors and facets come out. But this was that type of day that we want to continue to do that and strive for that excellence that we know our community deserves. And that's it. Are there any questions?
Sounds like a great day.
Yeah, tremendous amount of planning went into it. I think one of the things that stands out to me that I would like to highlight is, not only did we have some outside consultants, but you also had a tremendous amount of sharing of expertise that took place with our teaching and administrative staff, which is great because we don't always get the opportunity to talk to one another and share the things that we're doing. And from my perspective, that was one of the highlights of the day. We had a visitor that was here that was a fellow Fulbright scholar that came to work with Ann Ward and co-present one of the sessions. And she was visiting us from Boston. And as she was leaving, she mentioned to Dr. Schoenfeld and I that this was one of the best staff development days she's ever seen. And she wanted more information to take back to her school district in Massachusetts so they could try to replicate the model that Dr. Schoenfeld has built here. So I think that speaks volumes when people want to steal the wonderful things that you're doing. You've hit a home run.
Thanks. And the teachers did a fabulous job. I always tell you when I have the opportunity how professional our teachers are. It was exciting to walk around and see how engaged they were. We do that oftentimes with the students, and you see kids in the classroom. Our teachers were engaged, having fun. They were like, we wish we could do this every day. So that's a good thing to hear as feedback.
Just curious, Dr. Schoenfeld, is this a natural setting where master teachers interact with the probationary teachers or vice versa, and they can kind of interact in a meaningful way?
Yeah, that was the one session we did have, which was the probationary teachers, which I'll say our new teacher orientation leader, which was more of a master teacher, worked with them. But by and large, we had many teachers, I wanted to say, teaching our veteran teachers things and vice versa. We had over 50 teachers that either worked, we had probably more teachers that even co-presented to be part of it. But I found them to be an expert in their field, and they were offering something. So and sometimes there were 8 to 15 in a group, and sometimes there were 3 or 4. But it was meaningful, and it was what you wanted. So.
And everything was thoroughly vetted. There was, in order to be a presenter, there was a pretty rigorous application process that we asked folks to fill out. And Dr. Schoenfeld went through and vetted all of them and to make sure that they're to the level that we want them to be at for our faculty and staff. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, I think we're on to new business.
All right.
Mr. Rampado, could you grab the light for us, please? Thanks.
Thank you. I will need a motion for new business items.
I'll make a motion for new business items for F1, A through J, 2, A through N, 3, C, D, E, F, G, and H.
Okay,
Second.
great. Do we have any discussion? All right. All those in favor of approving new business items F, 1A through J, 2A through N, and C, 3 through H, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries 6-0. I don't believe we have any follow-up action items. We will then need a motion to convene to executive session.
I move we move to executive session
Or,
for matters of personnel evaluation.
okay, we have a second? All those in favor of convening to executive session, please say aye. Aye. Thank you, everybody, for coming. That concludes our meeting.